Welcome to the How Good It Can Get podcast, where we dive deep into the transformative journey from surviving to thriving. Join me, your host, Andrea Rice, on this empowering exploration of mindfulness, spirituality, and unlocking your full potential. Let me show you just how good it can get. To How Good It Can Get. I am your host, Andrea Rice, and I want to say thank you to all of you out there listening. We have a ton of listeners in Canada and Costa Rica, so thank you for listening. I appreciate all of the support, and tell your friends. Yeah, I don't often have a lot of guests, so today I'm super, super excited to have Josh Dumas with me, and he is an author. And Josh, you have 3 of the top 50 books on Amazon.
Yes.
In what genre?
Actually, when I first started up, they were all actually went into the horror category.
Uh-huh.
And one of them actually reached number 1 for best 90-minute reads, which actually shocked the heck out of me because I didn't even know there was such a category. So I had people like emailing saying, you're number 1. And I'm like, really? But yeah, 90-minute reads. And I'm like, I thought they were joking. I didn't even think that was a real thing. I thought they're pulling my leg. And then I went and looked, and it was like, I think it was like in the top like 1,000 for all Amazon books, but then in the individual categories, like there I was, number 1. And I'm like, wow. Like,
That's incredible.
why
And
they
what book was
break in?
that?
Across the river. It had to do with a father who was obsessed with wanting to be rich, where he was basically was in more of a little shanty on one side of the river. But yet when he looked across the river and bay that separated the houses, he could see like the big houses of like his boss and stuff like that. So he had this obsession with wanting to be rich, thinking that he deserved more, thinking that, these people had this stuff given to them and that he deserved it to be given to him. So it probably just kind of hit home, even though it had like a paranormal aspect to it, but it kind of had that feeling like of people always wanting to have more.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that one out. I like that.
So
we're talking a little bit today about finding your purpose and passion in life and, the little synchronicities that lead us to that. And so you are an author. Did you always want to write? Was that your passion from an early age?
when I look back, I'll say yes. Sorry. I mean, unlike most authors, they probably have this nice little cookie cutter response of like, yes, by the way, ever since I was 10 years old, I played on my mother's typewriter and I always knew I was destined for this. No, I did not know it. When I look back, I think there's like all kinds of signs because of the idea that I remember, I'd be like 5, 6 years old and I'd be sitting on my grandmother's floor and I'd be using her Agatha Christie books as building blocks. She was obsessed with Agatha Christie. And I was this annoying chubby kid that was like, why? And she would tell me, well, Poirot has to do this. And I'd be like, well, why? So I guess, I could see where there's like these early signs where I was like, inquisitive, like, why? Where if I didn't have an interest in books, I'd probably be like, whatever, give me the book you're reading. I need another building block. But instead I was like, well, why is he doing that? Why did they kill that person? Why did she do, my poor grandmother, I probably was the reason why she needed a rum and coke in order to sleep at night. But I think there were signs starting in the very beginning of that writing was in me, but I didn't realize it probably until I hit my 30s.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So when was it that you were like, no, this is it. This is what I am meant to do with my life?
I think it was probably when I was about 35. It was like, I would be like reading books. I'd be watching TV. I'd be watching movies. And for some reason, I would start, instead of just watching them and enjoying them, I would be sitting there and I'd be analyzing. I'd just be like back to the little chubby kid, like, why? And I would just be thinking, this doesn't have enough substance for me. This should have done this instead. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I should just write my own stuff. I should just do this, So all of a sudden I started writing like different little ideas, which in the beginning, they were probably horrible. They were probably nightmarishly bad. because I would write these stories that were like maybe 5,000 words, and then I'd go online and I'd be like, well, how long is a book now? How long, It's like,
Mhm.
you need to write 100,000 words. And I'm like, it's 100,000 words. It's like
Right.
that'll take me till I retire. But I actually ended up using my little 5,000 words and using it as an outline to expand upon. That's probably why most of my work has always been probably 50 to 60,000 words, which makes it a novel. But 100,000 words I struggle to achieve. So I just like, you know what? I'll keep it at 50, 60,000. This way I know that it's ripping all the way through. So it's not filled with unnecessary verbiage all the way.
Yeah, I like that because a lot of things that I've been thinking about lately is, there's like this, oh, a book has to be 100,000 words or this has to be this long. And it's like, no, do it to the best it can be done and kind of forget those requirements. I mean, they're just made up requirements, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you talk to like a publishing house, I mean, a lot of them, like I watched this one lady get interviewed and she's like, oh, my publishing house says it has to be at least 90,000 words. And to me, it's like, why not just worry about writing a good story? Why not worry about
Right.
just having a good plot? But instead, they're sitting there with this stuff in their back of their heads of thinking, no, I got to achieve this. And the next thing you know, you have like all these added scenes where at the end of the book, you're like, all right, well, that scene was interesting when I read it, but I have no idea why it was even in the book, you know?
Yeah, good
So,
point. Mhm.
but
Yeah. And when it comes to synchronicities, I know for me, I always felt that I had a purpose and a passion and like I was going to find it, but I really didn't find it until a couple of years ago. And
yeah,
then when I look back, it's the same thing like you were saying when you were a child using your grandmother's books for building blocks. I look back and I'm like, oh, there were little glimpses even as a child, right?
yeah,
That aligned to what I'm doing now. You just don't see it until you look back.
yeah. It's kind of like when you see, like, if you talk to a nurse, she's like, no, I didn't know I always wanted to be a nurse. But then, you hear stories about her being extra caring towards a sibling or extra caring to an ailing grandmother. And it's like, the signs are there. We
Yeah.
just don't realize it until a lot later on. So I don't even try to pretend or, come up with a nice little answer saying, I always knew. I have stacks of notebooks in my closet, which by the way, I don't. Or with years of ideas in them. It's like, no, I have no notebooks in my closet. So it was more of like the signs were there, but they didn't really come to light until my 30s, you
Yeah.
know?
Is there one moment in particular that sticks out in your mind that was like an aha moment that is like, I'm just gonna go full into this?
Yeah. It's funny. When I think about it, it wasn't really necessarily maybe a book that triggered my aha moment, but it was more like for some reason when I was watching the movie The Book Thief and the girl like had like this it was during like the World War II and, she lost her mother and brother and was basically sold off to go live with these other people in a village. And at the end of the movie, she became a writer where there was a guy in the basement that said, describe the sky to me because he wasn't allowed to go outside because he was Jewish and it was World War II. He had to stay living in these people's basements. Yeah, yeah, because she would just say, "Oh, the moon's out." And he's like, "No, no, describe it to me so I can visualize it." And for some reason, all of a sudden she had to think and word it. And I'm just like, I don't know. And then at the end of the movie, they turned her into a writer. And I'm like, for some reason, it's like all these ideas I have, because everybody has movie ideas or book ideas or short stories or even picture books,
Right.
but nobody ever goes through with it. And I'm just kind of sitting there like, all these little notes, because I have little notes in my computer that I don't know if I'll ever get back to them, but they're in there where I'm like, if I do what this guy made this girl do and just add to it, be more descriptive, just give it more life, maybe I actually have something sitting there. And then I pulled up one and I'm like, I think that I think I can do this. I actually like how this sounds. And then I would start reading stuff back to myself. And a weird little thing I do, which I don't know if other people do it, but I do, is that when I read stuff back to myself, I like to do it with an accent because it's almost like somebody else is reading it to me, or I catch the little speed bumps as I put it, in the sentence to see if it flows right. So like reading it back to myself in probably the worst Scottish accent you could ever possibly imagine. And I'm like, I like this. It sounds good. Like, I think I have something here. So all of a sudden I was like, my days off from work, in the middle of the night, I'd get up for 20 minutes, I'd jot down a paragraph. It was really just, I think it was really triggered by a movie that kind of brought everything together of describe it a little bit more,
Yeah.
make the picture with words. So,
Yeah, I like that. And for me, when you say that, I always think those I always say books find me, right? I don't find books, books find me. Or
yeah,
like with that movie, you wonder, did that movie find you to help trigger that in you, right? Like it's all these little synchronicities along the way that we don't even know they have any significance
yeah.
until after the fact when we're looking back, which I find is so interesting and amazing.
It really does make you wonder because I mean, with a million things to watch, there's one thing you decide one day, it's like, I'm just going to sit down, I'm just going to watch this. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's like, this is really good. And then you start thinking about it more and more as you're watching it. And I don't know, you kind of feel that connection to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's amazing to me the way synchronicities work. One, it's not like a passion related or work related synchronicity. So I had this conversation on the phone with a friend of mine,
mhm,
and she was telling me that, oh, you need to be more involved in things. You need to do more things, and it kind of irritated me. It kind of triggered me in a way. So as
yeah,
soon as I hung up the phone, I went online and signed up for this comedy school, right? And it started like the next day, right? I just got in under the line to sign up. And through that comedy school, I met what would become one of my best friends who has helped me with a lot of work stuff, like really finding confidence to do the things I want to do in life, that I am good enough to achieve the things that I want to achieve. And I was like,
yeah,
wow, when you look back on it, it's because this lady triggered me on the phone that happened.
yeah. It just takes that one little moment, and I mean, and it's like when I look at this stuff though, I think one of my big struggles though is the idea of my age. Because when I was like 35 in my 30s, I feel like I was like in this group. And I talk with my hands sometimes, by the way. I just usually try to hide them. Um, I was in this group where it seemed like people stopped dreaming, where people were like 35 years old and they're like, okay, I just got to run out the clock till I'm 60 or 65 so I can retire. And all of a sudden, I'm just like sitting there and it's like, I'm working away, and I'm like, and I'm thinking like they are because most of the people my age are thinking, just got to cross that finish line. And I don't know
Yeah.
why, but the finish line's a big deal. And I'm like, but I'm not done dreaming yet. I have ambitions. I have stuff I want to do. I want to achieve, you know, and they're like, well, how are you going to retire then? So it's kind of like, okay, I refuse to give up dreaming, but I understand what they said. So all of a sudden, it's like, I feel like I'm running this like parallel A and B plan just in case, because I refuse to give up dreaming. I refuse to not try. So
Oh, I love that. And Josh, like I know you and I are about the same age, and I have found that too. It's like you get to a certain age and people are already resigned to life is done. But I feel the same way. Like I feel like I'm just starting.
yeah, yeah, it's like still have things you want to do.
Yeah.
I want to achieve writing. I want to hike to the top of a mountain. I like to say I want to walk up to the top of the Eiffel Tower, but I'd probably take the elevator. But it's like there's still things there. There's
Yeah.
still things to achieve, and just because I'm a little older, um, doesn't mean that I should not be able to have these ambitions and drives to do things, you know?
So anyone out there listening who, if you're in your 20s and 30s, 40s, it does not matter what age you are. If you have a passion and a dream, go for it. I think Martha Stewart didn't start her company until she was 50,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's never too late. Um,
And it's true about never being too late. I mean, even like I think like Humphrey Bogart, I don't think he became famous or did his first movie till he was in his 40s. So
yeah.
it's like never, you can always just keep trying and doing. If you fail, who cares?
And I'm
So,
feeling when you do find your passion,
yeah,
right? For everyone, it takes. I mean, some people are lucky enough to find their passion when they're teenagers or in their 20s. And for some people, maybe they won't find it till they're in their 60s or 70s. But when you do find your passion, it doesn't feel like work anymore,
yeah, no,
right? Do you feel
I
like that
enjoy
when
it.
you're writing? Like that's not work.
I actually enjoy it. I sit down, I enjoy it. I mean, I do admit though, because sometimes my fingers can't keep up with my mouth, I guess you could say. I actually did buy a microphone so that I could actually dictate now.
Oh,
And yeah, so I will sit there literally where you'd actually probably think that I'm like an actor, studying for a line because I'm actually like picking up the microphone and being like, as you slightly walk down the hallway and could feel the moisture under his feet as the boards bowed downwards. So I'm like doing like my own little acting routine in my living room, holding onto my microphone. And it's like, thank God nobody can see me. This would look really bad. So
love it. What advice would you give to people who maybe just found their passion or they haven't found it yet?
I would always say just keep looking.
Yeah.
Because there's signs out there. I mean, there's signs and it's people pushing you and things nudging you. But the thing is that you just don't realize that it's there. You don't realize that the nudging is there, you know? And then I think like some people just automatically have this weird label of, I can't do that or I can't make a living off that, you know?
Yeah.
And for the most part, it's more like, well, why can't you? What,
Right.
you know? I mean, I realize that might be a job that only 1,000 people have, but why can't you be one of those 1,000? Because those people that have that 1 in 1,000 job, they probably said the same thing at one time. Like, oh, I'd like to do that, but they would never hire me or I would never be good enough because there's so few of them and so many of us wanting it. But it's really just keep looking and keep driving forward.
I agree. And I like to always say life is full of infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like you said, even if it's a 1 in 1 million shot, that possibility exists. Go for it. I wake up every day and I remind myself that I am creating my reality, that life is full of infinite possibilities, that the right things will show up at the right time. And if you're open to it, you will find the possibilities and the opportunities that lead to your bliss. You just got to be open to it.
Yeah. Well, it's like one of the things I noticed about you when I looked at your Instagram page for the first time. You generally have this like happy disposition, this happy aura to you, So it was like, wow, like this person's not sitting on here complaining about who's going to be president or who's going to be this, who's going to be that. But like, there's actually somebody happy on the internet. It's like, how did she get on there?
Well, thank you. I do try to spread positivity. That's my purpose, That's what I enjoy doing. And speaking of Instagram, tell everyone listening how they can follow you and where they can get your books and what you got coming up.
Well, everything is actually available on Amazon. My Instagram page is author JP Dumas. I think I'm easy to find. I think I'm the only one on there. I do have the blue dot, to which I wasn't going to do, but I noticed that there's been a surge of fake accounts on people. So I went ahead and got the blue dot just to make sure that people knew that it was really me. Right now, I am working with a mystery author, Nick Winter, to which we kind of like merged our skills together because I was more in the horror area and she was obviously a murder mystery. And we actually have a book that's hopefully going to be out next year called We All Fall Down, which oddly enough, it started off being based in New England. And then all of a sudden we decided, you know what? This should be a lot better if we moved it to Scotland because it just seemed like so many books and so many stories are like either big cities or in small towns in America that were like, how about we move this to Scotland and give it that really unique feeling to it? So that one is actually in the works about a 10-year-old cold case that a teenage girl discovers and becomes obsessed with solving, to which she has a very eccentric family, very unique family. Her best friend is a boy where he's actually kind of scared of everything, but yet he's still very intelligent, but he's very scary. But we think that everybody's going to love it because of how well-rounded it is. So, but
That's
hopefully beginning of
awesome.
next year. Yeah.
Yes, looking forward to that. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming on and sharing your insights with us. And everyone, go to Instagram, check them out, get those books. Yeah, a lot of great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
You've been listening to the How Good It Can Get podcast. Remember, the power to transform your life is within you. So stay mindful, stay empowered, and keep embracing how good it can get.